Have you received one of these? We're all familiar with the decennial census, the enumeration of the population every 10 years, but this isn't one of those years. While the census is an important part of the Union, it's been corrupted and used illegally for decades. But these calls for more data are not only corrupt, but illegal. So we'll explore that next, right here on the Constitution Study.
Neighbors and have a few good friends. Every day we're everyday Americans. Oh, every day we're everyday Americans.
Hello there, everyday Americans. Paul Engel here with the Constitution Study, where we read and study the Constitution, teach, write, and generation be free. And I'm glad you could join me today. You know, the census has been a 10-year pain in my backside for quite a while. It's because of all the questions they ask. And now I'm getting them in the middle of the cycle. It's ridiculous. And it's one of the reasons why I think we need to start doing something about this. I'll talk more about the website and other things you can do to get engaged at the end of the episode. But for now, let's take a look at this census question. The need to enumerate the population comes from Article 1, Section 2, Clause 3 of the Constitution. Now, who is to be counted was changed in 1868 with the ratification of the 14th Amendment. Representatives shall be apportioned among the several states according to their respective numbers, counting the whole number of persons in each state, excluding Indians not taxed. Now, knowing how many people live in each state by a census is how the members of the House of Representatives are apportioned to the states. The only exception to who is counted are the Indians who are not taxed. The process for this enumeration remains in Article 1. The actual enumeration shall be made within 3 years after the first meeting of the Congress of the United States, and within every subsequent term of 10 years in such manner as they shall by law direct. Since the first meeting of Congress happened in 1789, the first census was conducted in 1790. And the census has been conducted every 10 years since. However, this simple enumeration has been supplanted by a demographic inquisition. The first question on the 2020 census was legitimate enough. How many people were living or staying in this house, apartment, or mobile home on April 1st, 2020? However, the second question is a bit confusing. Were there any additional people staying here on April 1st, 2020 that you did not include in question 1? If question 1 is to include everyone living or staying in a house, how can there be additional people staying there? From there, things go far beyond enumeration of people living in each state. Question 3, is this house, apartment, or mobile home owned by you or someone in the household with a mortgage or loan, including home equity loans? Owned by you or someone in this household free and clear without a mortgage or loan? Rented, occupied without payment of rent. What is your cell phone number? Then the questionnaire gets personal. Please provide information for each person living here. What is person 1's sex? What is person 1's age? And what is person 1's date of birth? Is person 1 of Hispanic, Latino, or Spanish origin? What is person 1's race? And this goes on for every person in the house. This in itself is a violation of the Constitution, but we'll get to that later. While the decennial fishing expedition is bad enough, a few weeks ago I started receiving cards and letters like this. While this junk mail is an annoyance, there's something on this page that not only grabbed my attention, but pissed me off. Do you see it? This is not only a lie, but is itself criminal. Would you like me to show you why? Let's start with the fact that the United States isn't allowed to enumerate the population whenever they want, only once every 10 years. The United States only has a power delegated to it by the Constitution, as stated in the 10th Amendment. The powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution, nor prohibited by it to the states, are reserved to the states respectively or to the people. Now, since Congress is only empowered to make all laws which shall be necessary and proper for carrying into execution the foregoing powers and all other powers vested by this Constitution in the government of the United States or in any department or officer thereof, Since the power to enumerate the population is not vested in the United States except for once every 10 years, it was neither necessary nor proper for Congress to pass a law to do so. That makes Title 13 of the United States Code, Section 141D, unconstitutional, invalid, and void. That subsection reads, "The Secretary, in the year 1985 and every 10 years thereafter, shall conduct a mid-decade census of population in such form and content as he may determine, including the use of sampling procedures and special surveys, taking into account the extent to which the information to be obtained from such census will serve in lieu of information collected annually or less frequently in surveys or other statistical studies." This also means that Section 193 is unconstitutional, invalid, and void as well. In advance of, in conjunction with, or after the taking of each census provided for by this chapter, the Secretary may make surveys and collect such preliminary and supplementary statistics related to the main topic of the census as are necessary to the initiation, taking, or completion thereof. And that's just the beginning. Both the demographic questions on the census and surveys are unconstitutional as well. That's because they violate the Fourth Amendment to the Constitution, which reads, "The right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated." So the question that has to be answered is, are these surveys reasonable? In the case of Morales versus DeLay, the U.S. District Court for the Southern District of Texas found, "It is clear that asking personal questions of residents of the United States in the census was not regarded as an unlawful search." Now, this is based on the history of the census. The Census Bureau points out that from the very first census performed in 1790, Congress authorized questions pertaining to age, gender, and race. However, there's a vast gulf between asking a person's age, gender, and race in 1790 to who owns the dwelling and what is your telephone number. Remember, in 1790, only 3/5 of those not free were counted in the census, so asking about the state of servitude was reasonable. That said, since the United States doesn't have a constitutionally sound reason to have such detailed information or to update it so frequently, it is not reasonable for them to search for such information. Not only is the United States illegally searching for this information, they try to intimidate us into witnessing against ourselves and giving up our right to be secure from unreasonable searches. As the Fifth Amendment states, no person shall be compelled in any criminal case to be a witness against himself. You may be thinking that the census isn't a criminal case, but the census document states that your response is required by law, meaning that there is a possibility of a criminal case. Just as you have a right to remain silent when confronted by law enforcement, even before criminal charges are pressed, you have a right not to answer questions from any government official. After all, the First Amendment states, "Congress shall make no law abridging the freedom of speech." Freedom of speech is not only the right to speak, but the right not to speak. Since there is no legitimate reason for the United States to have such information, you have no obligation to witness against yourself. Now, these facts make the actions of the census not just unconstitutional, but criminal as well. Under Title 18, Section 242 of the United States Code, we find, "Whoever, under color of any law, statute, ordinance, regulation, or custom, willfully subjects any person in the state, territory, commonwealth, possession, or district to the deprivation of any rights, privileges, or immunities secured or protected by the Constitution or laws of the United States, shall be fined under this title or imprisoned not more than 1 year or both." That means that anyone who attempts to enforce this intimidation tactic is committing a federal crime. For my entire adult life, I've only answered a handful of questions on the census: my name, my address, the number of people who live in my house. Now, this went from a decennial nuisance to a regular infringement on my rights. Contrary to what it says on the census envelopes, not only is your response not required by any legitimate law, but their repeated searches for information is the violation of the law. While I know many people have simply thrown these pesky invasions to the trash, I'm keeping them as evidence of their criminal activity. I'm considering sending a cease and desist letter to the census with a copy going to my state attorney general. I'm curious if you would join in such a letter. By the way, the census questions I pointed to are only the short form. The one that most people got. Some people got the long form where they ask all sorts of detailed personal information the government has no right to. I'm not even sure the 17th census had a legitimate right to race and sex. Again, condition of servitude, yes, because that was necessary to calculate representation. But men and women both count towards representation, so what does sex matter? Whatever that is, you go back to what the Constitution actually says. This is an unconstitutional act. And it's one that went from a every 10-year nuisance to truly a problem. Of course, they're also wondering, they're spending money on mail. They're mailing this out. Does that make this a form of wire fraud? To deprive us of our rights through the mail? There's so much to this. And I'm kind of curious. If I were to create such a cease and desist letter, if I were to make it available, would other people sign it, send it in, and copy their state's attorney general? I'm curious because I'm not sure whether or not it would make a difference. I mean, sure, I may send one just for me, but are other people interested as well? Did you even consider the fact that the census may have some criminality to it in the depth of information they're requesting, a violation of your right to be secure from unreasonable searches? That's what comes from reading and studying the Constitution. It's what we do here. It's to help people read and study the Constitution so they know what their rights are and are better prepared to defend and assert them. Now, if you want to find out more, I found this really neat course called The Miracle of America. It's a 12-lesson course. It was actually first created back in the 1980s. And it goes through American history, both before and after the Constitution, so you can understand why the Constitution is the way it is, why the federal government is structured that way. Now, as a follower of the Constitution Study, you can actually get one lesson absolutely free. Just go to constitutionstudy.com/1776 study guide. That's the numerals, 1776 study guide. You'll be taken to a special landing page just for Constitution Study people, and you can learn more about the class and enroll for your free lesson on God's natural law. Once you try it, I think you'll like it enough that you want the entire course, which is just $17.76. And hey, with the holidays coming up, maybe that'd be a nice Christmas present. Whether you purchase the course or not, I'd at least recommend going in and taking the free class. You get a downloadable PDF of the study guide. You can watch it on video, listen on audio, and learn some important information about our country and our history. So once again, the website is constitutionstudy.com/1776 study guide. I also recommend Patriot Mobile for your wireless services. Patriot Mobile is America's only Christian conservative wireless provider. They share our views, our beliefs. They help protect our rights, not destroy our rights. Just go to patriotmobile.com/constitution to find a plan that works for you. And oh, by the way, if you use the code Constitution at checkout, you get free activation as well. Once again, that's patriotmobile.com/constitution to find a plan that works for you. And then use the code Constitution at checkout to get free activation. I also hope you'll take this episode and, well, all the other episodes and share them. Share them with friends, share them with family, post them on social media. Let other people know there's a place to go to learn about the Constitution. I'm putting on a new event here in Middle Tennessee called Power in the Hands of the American People. If you're interested, go to constitutionstudy.com/power. By the way, if you don't live in the Middle Tennessee area, sign up anyway. You'll get updates. There's a checkbox that says, I'd like to bring this to my hometown. And I'll reach out to you and we can see about getting this done in your location. And of course, you'll get all the updates as we go along. You can even agree to sponsor the event in one or more locations by hitting the checkbox on the form as well. Again, the website is constitutionstudy.com/power to sign up for updates and to ask for it to come to your location. Regardless, I hope you've enjoyed this program. I hope you learned a little bit about the census, and I hope you come back and join us next time for the Constitution Study.